I do my research for these videos, I think, differently from the majority of people, and I wanted to give an example of this before I talk about which I think is the main point of this video is gratitude and gratitude for God. So I wanted to preface this by giving a few examples of how I make these videos and how it comes from the source, how the information that I present here comes from the source. So I received a message last night from one of my longtime viewers saying that Angelina Jolie was feeding her kids bugs, and I was tired and I really didn't think there was a video in this, so I just looked at it briefly and then I went to bed. And then I had a great meditation at 3. I went back to sleep and then had another great meditation. And all the information that I was going to present in this video, the information I'm going to present in this video was there. The stuff I'm going to present later. And I was drinking my chai and I was in this really good state and just feeling God's love. And I saw again on Huffington Post this thing about Angelina Jolie. And immediately as I looked at it, the information was there. And I could see, and I could just see what was going on. And so the information just floods in on a heart level and then into my mind. And then images and ideas that are there before, things that I know to be truths and things I know about Angelina Jolie. And I knew that this was the way to promote eating bugs, that this is something that they're going to roll out. Now, first of all, when you watch the video of Angelina Jolie, so I made the video and posted it directly before this one, and the title of it is Illuminati Witch Angelina Jolie Wants You to Eat Bugs. But when you watch the video, you can see with the production values and the number of different kinds of insects they got. And the way her kids reacted, like imagine feeding your own kids or kids that you know insects. One of these kids was like, gross. They're all on board. Everyone's like, oh, this is great. You know, like one of these infomercials where everyone's like, oh, this is the great best thing ever. And so when you watch this, you can see that they're promoting this. And so I already knew the idea, it just came into me from the source that this is something they're going to roll out in the future. And then all these ideas came in and I thought, well, obviously, bugs are either, having been on a farm, I know what it takes in terms of resources to raise a cow. If you want to raise a healthy cow or chickens, you need some acres of land, some acres of good pasture. You need some sort of higher quality protein type food for your cows, alfalfa, or maybe some grain if you want to have lots of milk. And then the cows need medical attention. And these are big animals that you need to keep alive. Same thing with chickens. Chickens you need to keep clean, they get diseases, and it takes a lot. And I know what they do on these factory farms. And I know the amount of antibiotics they give to these animals and the disease and the loss of product because they die. There's so much loss. But with insects, they're high in protein. I just knew all this. It's just like it's just right there. And they could basically be in some building. They don't even need like any sort of grounds or land. They reproduce easily, and they take maggots and things like that come out in 3 days, high in protein, and they grind it up and put it in your processed food. And I've seen the way children react to processed food and what's in it. They don't care about the ingredients. So many people just buy these things off the shelves, and they just replace your chicken with maggots, and nobody cares because it tastes basically the same. They're basically a much easier way to grow protein, especially with the world population. So they were going to introduce this idea. So I pulled all the screenshots, I did the voiceover, and then I looked and I Googled it. And of course it's being rolled out. There's all these mainstream news organizations that are promoting this. They've been promoting this for a while, that bugs are the food source of the future. Of course I was there. But the ideas came through the Ethernet. I used my connection, my meditative connection to the spiritual world to gather and see this thing clearly. And that's why I can make a lot of videos. I can make 4 or 5 videos this way a day. And the research almost always comes secondary. And I pull from my own experience in life, previous research, and my ability to see patterns being a dyslexic person. And so this is where this content comes from. It's not my opinions or my views or my personal, I mean, certainly I'm a lens and I have my personality and my ego that's a reflection of this. But all the information I present here, whether you like it or not, This is where it comes from. This is what, it's not like, all right, this is what I think about it. It's through this meditative process and a connection to the source, connection to God's love, and seeing things through that lens, seeing things through the heart. And I trust in that more than I trust in the lies and the information that's on the internet. So I always go with that. And usually, I mean, it's almost 100%. I don't remember a time this wasn't the case, where the ideas would come in and there would be complete validation of this opinion, this information that's passing through me. It would be there on the internet. And so when I looked at this guy, Milo Yiannopoulos, again, not pronouncing his name right, just saw him like 3 days ago. Never heard of him, but he was all over the place on Google Trends and YouTube Trends and these types of things. He's just really being promoted. And then I saw him with Bill Maher, and I could see the relationship between them. I could see that these two guys were working together, even though they appear to be on opposite sides. One's a so-called liberal, one's a so-called conservative. They were clearly connected. There was some flirtation going on, and I was like, there is a relationship here. I only had to watch like 2 minutes of the thing. And then all this information's coming out about this guy being the shill, because it's just there to see. When you remove your own opinions and you remove your own consciousness, your own subjective view of things, that you eventually, just because of like having some purity and clarity in your spiritual world and your spiritual being, the information's there for you to plug into. And then I'm not talking about just in terms of these videos and things, but making decisions on daily life, following your heart's path, following your soul's path, and you just feel it. Your heart will be pulled in one direction or another. This is a wonderful thing about the heartfulness practice that I do. I've been doing for a number of years, and all the other people that do this practice, that through meditation, your soul directs you, God directs you, and a lot of times it doesn't make sense to your minds, and there's a conflict between your minds and your hearts. But if you follow your soul's path, you always get spiritual evolution, and God's love is always there to support you, no matter how difficult the circumstances are when you make those decisions. So this is something that I really am happy about. Happy about that I found this practice and I am able to participate in this sort of movement. It's a different sort of way to live your life. And the thing about it is, I make sometimes 3-4 videos a day. I can't remember videos I made like 2 days ago. People ask me questions, and I go back and watch the video, and I feel positive about it, even though I have no idea what's in it. Let's say somebody asks me a question about it, but I can't remember. The information isn't there. I just don't hold on to it. And then when I need it again, it's there. So it's like it's stored in what I call the Ethernet in the spiritual world. And you can plug into it, but you don't have to carry it around on a daily basis. And you can draw from your past experiences. Now I'm going to relay an experience that happened to me about 21 years ago that is very pertinent today. And the memory just came up this morning in my meditation. I hadn't thought about it in years. But it's about how the whole system is rigged. And talking about this thing with Milo Yiannopoulos and Bill Maher and this thing with Angelina Jolie, if you're seeing it, if it's being promoted on YouTube, it's being promoted on Google and through these search engines, and there's a lot of people talking about it on CNN, if they're making this a viral type video that's being promoted at every level, on a viral level between people, but also it's being promoted in mainstream media, if somebody is being promoted, a person, you know that they're being controlled in some way or another. Everybody that you see on TV is controlled. And maybe they don't know they're controlled. Maybe they have no idea about what we call the Illuminati or what I call the controllers or any of this. But they have handlers and managers and people that tell them what they're supposed to say and what their opinions are supposed to be, because the human beings are unstable. And this is what I talk about over and over again. This is a fact that everybody needs to know. This is not debatable. The people that control our society, their biggest fear has always been how unstable the human beings are and how quickly human beings will turn on you. And you can see this in YouTube and whatever. I've had this personal experience. You have people that love your work and love your opinions, and as soon as you go against their beliefs, they turn on you in a hostile way. They'll call you names. They make up things about you that they're just completely, they're their own they're coming out of their own sort of mental illness and survival mechanism because their beliefs have been threatened. So they immediately attribute things to you to make themselves feel better. And they'll call you names or whatever. And you see this happens all the time in history where the kings and the rulers, there's famine, there's some difficulties, and there's a mob rule. They make up all kinds of things about the king or whatever, what's going on. They don't know. They work themselves up into a froth, and next thing you know, they're burning down the castle. And this is a fear the controllers live with all the time, so they control all the narratives, all the messages, and they have a backup plan, contingency plans, and how they can get rid of massive amount of people in a population type situation where they can go to hide when the system inevitably it has to collapse. There's going to be famine, there's going to be dark times, and America is really in one of the worst states of any other country. So I want to talk about that in a second. So here's the story. It was 1994. I quit my job working in a treatment center in Massachusetts, and I relocated in Albuquerque, New Mexico. I took my Toyota Tercel, drove across the country, put my Tercel in a storage unit with all my belongings, or most of my belongings, and then I packed up and went to India for my first time for 5 months. And I had a real spiritual cleaning in India, and I came back to Albuquerque, and I didn't know anybody, and had difficulty finding a job. It took me like 3 months to find a job. And while I was looking for a job, I was looking at the want ads every day. So this is back before I had a computer and the internet. And there was these ads that were clearly some sort of a scam. They were like, do you love sports? Well, come work with us. And it wasn't just that ad. There was the ads about, do you like entertainment? And they all had the same number. Like I saw a pattern. I saw that there was this scam. And I was really kind of bored. I didn't know anybody. And so I went and I said, all right, I'm going to check this thing out. So I went in there and they had scheduled interviews at like 10 in the morning. They had like group interviews and there was about 15 other people there with me. And you walk in and it was like a warehouse. It was like almost a place in a storage unit. But they made it look elegant. They painted the walls black and they had these sort of elegant furniture, but it's very sparse, very open area, some offices. And they had these paintings on the wall. But I could see that they could clear this whole thing out in about 15 minutes with a couple of guys in a moving truck and a van. They could take all the furniture, all the paintings, but they made it look like it was elegant. And you walk in and there was this supermodel looking girl, inappropriately dressed like in a mini skirt, who clearly didn't have any secretarial skills, but her number one job is to look like a supermodel and give the sort of the impression of wealth, like she was dressed nicely and these types of things. And you came in and everybody was really positive. And they started off with a group video. And there was this guy and he said, I'm really, really wealthy. And here's my documentation. He started showing off his cars and his boats and his house. And he said, you can be this way too. And I'm like, oh my God, this is going to be great. Like I was smiling. And I was looking at the other people there. And I'm like, this is some kind of a Ponzi scheme, some kind of a pyramid scheme. That's what we called it back then. My friends had been involved in a pyramid scheme, so I knew how they worked. And so then he shows all these other people like you that are with him. And he had Ted Danza with him, the guy from Cheers. And this was, years ago, so he was a relevant celebrity. And they're on this yacht, and they're going to islands, and they've got all these beautiful women with them. And they have this one woman, she's surrounded by 2 male models. And these are all people who are successful in this alleged company. And then they roll out their products, which is some like water filters and some magic water that you drink. And they show you when you put these drops into the water, it charges a battery or they run a light bulb because it's all electricity. It makes the water electric, and human beings are electric, so it makes you feel good. So they roll out a series of products that you're supposed to sell. And then they make their pitch, and that is that you're supposed to come in and give them $5,000, and they make you a manager, and then you're able to make other managers, and then you're able to distribute these wonderful products. So the products are there just to make this look like a legitimate company, but $5,000 was always the going rate for pyramid schemes. And the way pyramid schemes are is that you would come in and give $5,000 to the pyramid, and then you would get 10 friends to sponsor you, and they would all give $5,000, or maybe it'd be two friends that gave 2,500 or something. And they would push you up the pyramid, the 10 people you brought in, and they would bring in 10 of their friends, and they would push them. And the people that got pushed all the way through the top of the pyramid, interesting metaphor. Of course, I didn't know about the Illuminati back then. And then you would get through the top of the pyramid, and you would get paid. It was like a lottery type situation, and they give you a big chunk of money. And then all the people, but you'd lose friends over this, and eventually the cops would get wind of the thing, and it would be something that would just completely collapse. So they sort of got around this by pretending to be a company that sold these door-to-door products. And so there's all these well-dressed people, and they partnered you up with some guy or some girl, and they would try to get $5,000 out of you. And this is how this, and they were all really positive, like they were just like, you're the best person. So I sat down with this guy, and he told me how he was working a really crappy job. And then he's got this job, and he became a manager. It's a title you get for $5,000. And I'm thinking to myself, aren't they supposed to pay me? If this is a job, why am I required to buy into my job? And he says, it's so positive here. The environment's so positive. I'm happy every day. My wife notices the difference. And they're just like talking to you like they're the greatest person. It's not like an interview where you're trying to prove yourself to them. What they're doing is telling you all the things you want to hear and make you to extract this $5,000 out of you. So I'm sitting there and I'm kind of laughing on the inside, and I'm waiting, and the guy's talking away, and I can see the other people. They're all interviewing supposedly, and I'm looking around at them. And I don't have $5,000. I'm just doing this because I'm bored. I'm bored. So this guy's really grooving on what he's saying. He thinks he's like really reaching me, and he's got his whole sales pitch down the script he's reading from. And I wait for a little while, and then we pause, and he's waiting for me to say something. I pause, and I just sit there for 15, 20 seconds, and I go, yeah, this is kind of a pyramid scheme, right? And the guy, the look on his face and his eyeballs, and he just sort of disassociated, like he left his body, like they hadn't really trained him. He was relatively new, and he hadn't heard this yet. And then he was thinking, well, is this guy a cop, and all the things that went along with it. And I tried to reassure him, but he was just gone. And then we sort of talked back and forth, but he just wasn't present. And then he got up and he went to talk to one of the higher managers, how to deal with the situation. And they the conversation ended really quickly, and they got me out of the door as soon as possible because they could see that I saw that this was a pyramid scheme. That was just an elaborate pyramid scheme. Now, I didn't get a chance to, but I'd always wanted to go back there and see how long they lasted in this warehouse that they had turned into this elegant office building. Because the way that pyramid schemes collapse is that people lose confidence. And what you have is people who have put $5,000 in, and the area gets saturated because somebody goes and gets 10 of their friends, and all 10 of their friends usually know each other. And so eventually they reach a state where all the friends are either been exposed to this and have rejected it, or they're in the pyramid scheme, and there's no one else for them to go to, no family members. And so the area dries up, and the number of people that are available to push other people through, they don't have anybody. And then everybody loses confidence. They realize they're going to lose their $5,000. This is something to do with all these pump and dump type situations. And so people start wanting their money back. They realize they're part of a scam. They go to their friends and they start harassing them. And the people who are running the scheme don't want this negativity, and they don't want the police to be involved, so they pack up and they go somewhere else. But the way the system works is that, and this is something that's a metaphor for all of these bubbles, the housing bubble, the internet bubble, and all these types of things, is that some people are going to lose their money. And that's how the other people make their money, is that some people are going to lose it. It's complete. There's no products exchange. There's no exchange of services. It's some people put their money into the pyramid and other people reap the rewards, and some people never get their money back. And a select number of people, the people who run the scheme and the people that got into it early, get pushed through and they make a profit. And all the other people lose $5,000 each. And so it mounts up when you get 100 people that lose $5,000 each. You think about how much money that is. $500,000. And so you understand this, that our whole economy is basically this type of scheme, a Ponzi scheme, pyramid scheme, and it's based in you having confidence in it. And of course, we have an economy where things are changing hands, but the real money that's made in the derivative markets by the bankers, and we're talking about trillions of dollars here, quadrillions of dollars. We have $2 quadrillion worth of debt. And so the system is already collapsed in that sense because there just isn't enough goods and services in the entire world to make up for this amount of debt. I mean, the entire world, the planet, isn't worth $2 quadrillion. It's like that in terms of economic development and turning these resources into actual things. And so it's just a confidence game. As soon as people lose confidence, the system collapses, and we're going to see that happen in the very near future. So all these moving parts, whether it be Angelina Jolie or it be Brad Pitt or it be Donald Trump, anybody who's in the spotlight is there for people, or this guy Milo Yiannopoulos. There's all these people on the right who really identified with this guy because he said things they wanted to hear. But all these people, or Barack Obama, or this guy Bernie Sanders, all these people that are put out in the spotlight, who have a national audience and microphone, and their ideas are there to make you believe that there's somebody representing your beliefs and your ideas in the system. And you identify with them and you think, oh, the system can be saved because this person's like me and they have some power and they have a voice and they're representing me and my beliefs. So there's hope because everybody believes that if people were like them, the system would be fine. And that it's the rest of the people that have to change. And that's what they've said, that it's not that you have to change as an individual. And that's what really has to happen here. We all have to change personally. We all have to get better. It doesn't matter if other people are lower than you in terms of their character qualities, in terms of their spiritual development, their capacity to love. Everyone has to be going up. It's just doesn't matter where you start from. Wherever you start is where you start, and you still have to go up and get closer to God and become a better person and become a smarter and wiser person and more in tune with nature and the divine laws and these types of things. That's the way we're all supposed to be going. But in the case of our current day civilization, everybody's going down. It keeps on sinking lower and lower. The vibrational level and all of it, culture, everything. Getting farther and farther away from human beings are designed. And everybody, they try to get you to believe that the system can be fixed and there are people like you working for your belief system. And that's why they have all these people that have different opinions and represent different attitudes, and they divide you up in the left and the right. And you think that the system can be saved, but it's already collapsed because it's a Ponzi scheme. It's something that creates short amount of wealth by extracting resources from the many and giving it to the few. And eventually it collapses. And now these guys, the controllers, are in the process of collapsing the system, allowing the Ponzi scheme, pulling out from this warehouse-like building everything of value, dropping it in a truck and going somewhere else, and let the friends fight over the money that they conned each other out of. Because people have gone to their family and friends and said, give me $5,000 and I'll make you rich. And then their family and friends lose that money. And if the person made it through the pyramid, then you have one person whose family and friends have pushed them through this scheme where the majority of the money went to the controllers anyway. And you have this one person who has to, give a little bit of money back. Do they lose their friends and family? What do they do? And this is what people are fighting over. And everyone who thinks that Donald Trump's going to save them, or any of these people that thought Barack Obama was going to save them and represents them, is just to keep your confidence in the system. Because once it's all based in perception, and once you perceive that it's a scam, and collectively people see that this economic system is just some sort of a mirage, an illusion, based in our own beliefs and our own desires, then the whole thing collapses. And this can happen with a natural disaster, any of these things. When there's famine and these things where people lose confidence. Once you lose confidence in the confidence game, people realize they're being conned, then human beings do not handle this maturely. And that's what the other part of this is, there's conflict. And people did really want to see Hillary win, just like a lot of people didn't want to see Trump win, because so there's part of it is having someone represent you. And the other part is rooting against the people that you hate and dislike, the other group. And a lot of these things are about conflict and division. And you see these arguments playing out in the YouTube comments or whatever. On Facebook, you see people getting into internet wars, with other people. And it's just a waste of your time and energy. Again, it zaps you of all your positive energy that you need to put in something else. That's why I don't like debate people and get into these sort of battles. In fact, I get comments all the time. There's a guy some time ago, maybe a year ago, and he wrote me this, 15 paragraph comment to a video, and I read a line of it, and I'm saying, oh, he's just trying to tell me I'm an a-hole. And I'm not into that. I'm not here for you to dump your psychological garbage on or whatever. I work for God. That's what I perceive what I'm doing here, that I'm doing God's work. And having gone through contentious marriage and things that I went through, I'm just not into the drama. I'm just not into these conflicts. This guy wrote me this long comment, this long maybe a couple different ones. And then I banned him, and he opened up another account and wrote me another long comment, which I didn't read. And he said, why don't you want to debate me? Because I see this person opened up a whole nother account because they were really interested in having some sort of conflict and drama with me. And you see this all the time. I've talked about this before as a psychological term, don't pick up the rope. And I'm going to follow this up with another video because this is already a long video, so I'm just going to touch on this briefly. But life is about having gratitude for everything that God gives you. And this is something that Americans are going to suffer for. This is one of the reasons why my family and I went to India, because we could see that when the collapse happens, America is going to be hit hardest, because Americans are going to have the least ability to understand why this collapse is happening, and we're the least prepared for it because we have been privileged. Now, they talk about the white privilege so much, but all Americans are privileged. There's the way that our electrical system works. You very see any disruption in power. Our grocery stores are filled all the time, and we haven't suffered an invasion really since, what are you talking about, 200-300 years when the British were here. And so we've never had to live in an occupied country with a foreign military there, which other people in the world do. We haven't had a massive famine. We haven't had an economic collapse since the Depression, and that's almost 100 years ago. And we haven't had the kind of natural disasters even, like a small country like Sri Lanka suffering a massive tsunami and 200,000 people die. And so Americans just are used to and feel entitled to and don't appreciate the fresh water that comes into your house every day, and the grocery stores that are filled, and your cars that you can just jump in and drive anywhere. People, even poor people, have a higher lifestyle than everyone else in the world. If you go to India and these countries I went to a city, Chennai, with 26 million people, and you see the impoverished people that don't have electricity, that are living on less than $1 a day, even less than that. And they don't have really proper food and nutrition. Their brains aren't fully developed. They're small, and they live short, maybe lives of 30, 40 years. They work hard every day for nothing, for peanuts, and they don't have anything close to the kind of lifestyle that we have here. And this is people all over the world. Half the people all over the world live in this abject poverty. They don't have fresh water. The average person in the world has to go 3 hours to get fresh water, spend all their day gathering firewood and fresh water and these types of things. People don't even know. And what the controllers have tried to do is get rid of the natural deprivation that all animals on planet Earth suffer. Now, if you read any sort of homesteading or aboriginal tales, there's periods of the great winter or the great storm or the great flood or the great drought where everybody suffers for a whole year or a whole period of years, and there's not enough food for everybody. And this is human beings, but animals suffer this all the time. Animals don't have stores of food. You have things like squirrels, But for the most part, animals don't have all this food. You see people in these survival shows, like people in Alaska and these types of things, and they're always trying to gather up enough food to make it through the winter. That's what all farmers do. They try to harvest enough food during the time where they can grow food and these types of things, and then make it through the winter based on this storage of food. And in a binary system where you have one thing, you always have the other. If you have abundance, you have to have deprivation. And what we've done is we've sort of pushed off the deprivation, the natural deprivation, which makes people grateful. Like if you've ever been hiking and you're out of water and then you're really thirsty, it's really hot out, and then you get to some place and maybe 3 hours after you originally got thirsty, and you drink some water and it's like the best thing you ever tasted. Or you haven't eaten and you're camping and these types of things and you're starving and you go to eat something, it's the best food that you've ever had. Because deprivation makes you realize what you're getting in life. Like when you're underwater and you can't take a breath of air and then you get up to the surface and you're like, oh my God, that's so good. I love breathing. Breathing is so good. But you take it for granted the rest of the time. But when you have asthma, you realize, oh my God, breathing is something that I've taken for granted. And so this is where gratitude for everything that you have and being happy, and this is the type of thing I'm talking about in terms of conflict and drama, that if you want a successful relationship or you want to be happy in life, you find a way to be grateful for everything. And I talk about this specifically with relationships in another video. You just look at the person that you're with and you say, you look for things to be grateful for. Your family, fresh water, things, your lifestyle, getting on the internet and having information, being grateful for things. If you're not grateful for it, then you shouldn't do it, because this is where you start having an attitude. Then you get mad at God. You feel like you're being cheated. You feel like you're a victim. Your life is an imposition, all these things. So you have to find a way to be grateful, and most of all, grateful to God. And suffering, when you suffer something and you realize that you've been taking things for granted, that makes you realize how much you love them and want them and need them in your life, whether it be people or it be just food or these types of things. And in America, everyone's become so entitled, and we just think that this is the way life works. Food always shows up. We always have abundance of energy. Of course, we're using resources from around the globe. When this happens, it's going to take people a long time, and this is what I'm presenting a lot on this YouTube channel, that we have to be prepared to understand that none of these things are guaranteed. The Ponzi scheme is going to collapse, and with it goes our abundance and our security. And then we have to go back and suffer the deprivation, where people are going to realize, especially in a post-apocalyptic nuclear war situation, where you can't even take a clear breath of air because there's radioactive particles and all these things, toxic dust in the atmosphere, where breathing is something that's of value. That breathing is a privilege. Breathing clean, fresh air is a privilege. Drinking clean, fresh water, the abundance of fresh water we have here in America, all these things. Never mind food and these types of things. And so America is going to get hit by a whole bank of deprivation that we've been pushing off for years and years. And that's why it's going to be tough here, because you're going to have an entitled people who don't have a lot of skills, who've never suffered an occupation, never suffered a war on their soil. Their dollar has always been strong, and all these things. And even if you've gone through some suffering and trauma in your life, there's so many people enjoying life around you that you can see it. It isn't like everybody in your village is suffering and no one has any hope, and there doesn't seem to be a beacon of hope. You can't turn on the TV and see all these people being successful and go, yeah, if they did it, I can do it too. You don't even see the possibility of success, because everybody that you know and that's in your country and in your environment is miserable. And these are things that we have to be prepared for. We have to learn alternate skills, and we have to learn to be grateful and realize that these are privileges based in a criminal system, a demonic system that's providing for us a level of lifestyle that is never supposed to be like this easy and this consistent. And that by pushing away these things, this is why people are so miserable. Look at how miserable people are when they leave comments. Look at the comments that you see in any YouTube video, or the way people express themselves to other people on the internet, or the hostility that people have, or the way they turn on loved ones. I mean, what good are you of a person when as soon as somebody says something you don't like, you immediately accuse them of being some sort of a demon or a horrible person? Think about this. And so why would anybody want you in their community? Why would anybody want you around them? That you can't suffer the least bit of bruise to your ego. And that's how miserable people are, because we're not having deprivation and we're not appreciative of all the things that we're getting. And life should be sort of just praising God for your problems, praising God for everything. This idea that everything is gratitude. Gratitude is always the last step, is when you go through the 5 stages of grief. Once you have gratitude, which isn't included in the 5 stages of grief, when you're grateful for whatever you've gone through, whether it be a trauma, whether it be something negative, when you find a way to be grateful for it, then it leaves your system. You no longer need that experience. You're just grateful for the outcome to something that everyone else would see as being negative. Find a way to be grateful for the bad things in your life, and certainly grateful for the good things in your life. And if you're in a relationship with somebody, or friends, certainly family, but if there's no gratitude there from the other people, they don't appreciate you. If you're in a couple and the other person isn't grateful for you, they're always looking like, you're a woman and it's a guy and he's always looking at other women, wishing that he could be with somebody else, not appreciating what he does for you. Or same thing for a man. A woman's always running you down, always saying that, she needs a better man or whatever. Then why be in that relationship? Why suffer those types of things? Because both people in a successful couple should look at the other person and be grateful for them. Say, God has provided me the exact person I need. Even their faults and things that they have wrong with them are there to help me grow and become a better spiritual person. It's the perfect person for me. And be grateful and focus in on their positive qualities and build them up, because everything's tearing everybody down now. But if you're a person that can't wait to say negative things to people and dump your toxic sort of inner venom on other people, you got to think about that. I mean, what are you doing? What kind of person are you? Somebody disagrees with you, your belief system, and you immediately want to dump on them and get involved in some negative drama and conflict. And that's what you see all around you. So this is, it shows you what years and years of abundance have done to the American people, the privileged people in the world. They're not grateful. They're not respectful. And it's just, kind of miserable people that who really wants to be around somebody like that? I mean, who's going to love somebody like that? If you have all this negativity inside of you and you can't wait to get into a conflict and tell somebody else, do you want to project this stuff that's inside you on somebody else? Think about that as being a human being. If you're doing that, then why? And then find some reason or some system. Again, the Heartfulness System is a spiritual cleansing system. There's ways to go outside and find something to be grateful for. So find some reason to be happy in your life, even when you're going through something. Do something for somebody else. Sacrifice. Build somebody up. Say something nice to somebody. You have the situation where people are in a couple will be all running each other down and looking for faults and looking to blame the other person and why it's their fault for the relationship being the way it is. So I see this all the time, where people will say, I've been watching your videos for years and I love them. But you did something that disagrees with me, and they'll unload on me, and I'll be like, no thanks. I'm not interested in that, because what is it about you that you watched videos for 2 years and you never once said one positive thing, and the first time that you go to write a comment, you're saying something negative? So you think about that as a human being, that you didn't have the capability of opening your heart and building something up and patting somebody on the back and saying something good to them. Your first comment is something negative. That's when you choose to express yourself, when you have to complain, when you have to say something negative. So this is something for everybody to consider. I mean, think about this. If this is the type of person that you are, and you're always getting in internet battles, you're always getting into conflict with other people, that really you're complaining about God. The demons are feasting on these conflicts, the conflict between the left and the right, the internet battles, all these types of things. They feast on ingratitude. You're complaining to God and you're saying, God, you're doing it wrong. The things in my life aren't right. I don't feel good. I'm not happy. I'm a victim of your incompetence, and you're really complaining about God. It's ingratitude. And that's kind of, if there's sins, that's the worst one. To be ungrateful for all that God's doing for you, whether it be something positive or negative, because everything that you have in your life is an opportunity for you to grow spiritually and ultimately get closer to God and become a more loving person. It's all the great saints suffered, but they become more loving people. Their hearts open up. They express God's love. Their hearts get clean. Their vibrational levels raised to a higher level of vibration. The way they love emanates off of them. It's just a better situation. And so this is something, it's an attitude. They took an attitude of, this is actually good. What God's doing to me is good. And so when you suffer, and you suffer gratefully, and you say, there's some reason for this, it's making me a better person, I'm going to ride this out to the end and see what God's actually doing for me in this situation. Instead of complaining, instead of turning, instead of taking a dark path and channeling demonic energy and adding to the conflict and the ugliness of this world. All right, so again, I'll make a follow-up video talking specifically about relationships. This is Paul Romano reporting from the apocalypse. Everybody have a blessed day.